All right, let's move on to the games. Round 10, Jesse, is in the books. What did we make of this round? God, there were some smashings, weren't there?
This was a moving day round, and we get one of these every month or so in the AFL, where teams that have been in bad form, they lose an extra game and say, "Oh no, they are in bad form," and they start to slide in people's opinions or in the narrative they're going to craft. You get teams that have a big result that kind of just give their supporters that little teeny bit of hope that maybe they're not rubbish. And then you get sides just pick up that extra win, and you say, okay, they're actually pretty good. And then you get West Coast winning.
Yay!
Yay!
I never thought I'd be so happy for a West Coast win.
I know.
But no, if you let us know your thoughts on this round, you can join us at CMPerfect_AFL, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon. I did them in a different order. That's okay.
That's fun.
We're in all those places. You can come find us. Let us know your thoughts on this round. Jesse, let's start off with Thursday night footy. Wait a second.
Now,
there we go.
We're not singing the song.
Okay.
We're singing a different song.
Okay.
Because Gold Coast got the 4 points in this game,
but
football was the winner. So
football was the winner.
Fun, football win. Fun, football win in Darwin because it was really good.
16-8, 104 to the Suns, 15-6, 96 in front of just shy of 10,000 at TIO Stadium in Darwin. Now, at the top of the episode, I was talking about how there are some teams that we know are just going to be at the top. I think it's now fair to say that Gold Coast, unless something crazy happens, they're there. They're going to play their first final series. They're playing too good a footy to miss it. Now, obviously,
it would be catastrophic if they didn't make finals. It would be catastrophic. It would be like the sun actually exploding.
It'd be so devastating. Oh my God. Could you imagine? But I think this is one of those games that shows us what we can expect when it comes to finals time. Hello. And that's what we want to see. There's a couple of games this round that kind of gave us that viewpoint. But how much of this is the Darwin effect, Jesse?
Well, I was going to say that because last week I said that if I'm Damien Hardwick, I'm considering penning a letter to the AFL saying, if we get a home final, let's play it in Darwin. And you kind of gave me a funny look. But am I wrong on that? Is that a bad take? Because they clearly play this ground, I think, better than they play People First. They do play People First quite well.
Yeah.
But they own this ground.
Yeah. Like, they play this. I'm not sure if it's the weather conditions because they're there for so long.
I think it is. That's my gut.
Yeah. I mean, because Hawks got up there a few days earlier than they usually would, just to try and acclimatise to the warmer, stickier, muggier weather. But it's just no shot at beating their Suns up there. Have they lost up there, Jesse? I don't think they have.
They have, but not in the last 8 games. I think Carlton beat them in like 22 or 21.
Oh, so long ago. Who even remembers that? Not me.
Carlton fans, because they were posting all over Twitter after the game saying, look at us, we won. And then they remember they're not even in the 8. Poor Carlton.
Your thoughts on this one, Jesse? What thoughts on the game? Go for it.
This is an awesome game of footy. And, we joked about KO Classics the other week. We said, why is this game here? Oh, it was actually quite good. This is a game where you'll remember the fact that this is a brilliant game. Gold Coast, they're taking scalps. And yes, it's important to quantify they have beaten the Dogs and the Hawks in Darwin. And the result may be different down in Victoria. It may be. They did lose to Richmond down there after all. But they've got to win these games, and they've got to get that culture going. And the thing with sides that haven't had winning track records is once you build that up, you can get that momentum going. It's a lot easier for a side like Geelong to say, you win some weeks, you lose some weeks. We just need to win more than we lose and make sure we're there in September. For Gold Coast, it's, guys, we need to make this final series. So every game means a lot to us. We're playing for more than 4 points each week. And that's what I think the Suns are doing right now. Damien Hardwick might be the first recycled coach since Mick Moldhouse to win a premiership at their second club. It's a big call now, but you look at this list and you look at where they could be. If they can just clear that final hurdle of consistency in Victoria, which is obviously a significant hurdle given that's where the grand finals played. If they can clear that and re-sign Matt Rowell, who is still not signed yet, and they really need to make sure he signs, if they can tick off those two things, we could be seriously staring at a Suns dynasty here in terms of contention. I think right now, 25 to 28, it's probably the window that I didn't see coming from most sides. I thought those sides probably ahead of them coming into the season for that. But they've accelerated through, and they've been able to build up such a strong stockpile of talent. And God, Liam, there's still more talent coming through that academy.
Yeah.
That academy is like Leo Lombard. We haven't seen much, if at all, of him. He might end up being the best of the lot. It's terrifying.
It is, and it's kind of nice to see. Obviously, as Freo supporters as we are, we're like, if the Suns get one before us, it's going to be quite devastating. On the flip side, God, they're playing good footy. They're well coached, and what I love about the Suns is I watch them every week, mostly, and I watch them running around, and I still don't really know who half of them are. I think it's just kind of the Suns effect. I think just because it's the Gold Coast, for years they've been kind of the jokers.
I'm going to tell my grandkids about Matt Roses. Jr.
Yeah, exactly right.
Just very quickly, just off Hawthorn. I think Sam Mitchell's smarter than to throw the toys out of the pram. Over this loss. They will bounce back from this. I think attacking teams when they play each other like this, they do tend to be close games, and I think we'll see another game like that later in the round as well that we'll come to. You just got to dust it off. You didn't win today. If you play in September, different game, especially if you're on Victorian turf.
And that is the first time I've put 2 pluses against both teams for the best on ground because it was really, really hard to pick.
Can we do minuses for the next game, Liam? Because this game was dreadful.
Okay, on Friday at the SCG, the Swans 11-12-78, defeating the Carlton Blues 9-8-62 in front of 39,082. Jesse,
I had to write the takeaway for this, and I had to write it without including the word shit. Because that was actually quite hard, I'll have you know, because that's really what I wanted to write there.
This is going to be up to you, Jesse, to do. Unfortunately, describe the game because I watched the mini for this one and got bored watching that. So I actually started doing anything else. And it was only 18 minutes. I just couldn't do it.
Well, I think Carlton started doing anything else but play football in the last quarter as well, judging on the way they finished. Look, Sydney, they needed this win desperately. Going into latter stages of the third quarter, Heaney misses a goal he probably should be getting, and then all of a sudden, Sydney just take off and leave Carlton behind. It's tough because the Swans, they've been a terrible side this year. I don't think that's too far to say. Compared to what we know the Swans have been in recent seasons, they've fallen off a cliff this year. This is not a game that Carlton should be dropping. I know the Swans have that advantage at the SCG, but they've also been poor all season, home and away. And this is a big blow for Carlton.
Because they were starting to look like they were putting some pieces together, the Blues.
Exactly.
Like they strung a few bits together, and then this is just such a massive step backwards. And, I said in our Just the Tips episode, which you guys can catch on YouTube later for next week for round 11, I said, I want to tip the Swans because it's the SCG and it's Carlton, and I just don't know. There are a few teams this year that I don't know teams. Carlton's one, Freo's one, Port's another one. You just don't know what's going to turn up. But Carlton looked like there was... I
thought Saints in there as well.
Saints as well, absolutely. But Carlton looked like they were starting to put some pieces together, and this was such a bad loss, all things considered. But yeah, I don't know.
There's one stat that you can put this loss down to. There's one statistic. Clearances, 45 Sydney, 36 Carlton. Their averages for the season, Swans 36.9, Carlton 40.6.
Right, okay.
So Carlton, with a significantly better midfield on paper than the Swans and a more productive midfield across the season, got smashed. They got obliterated when it mattered, and that shows fragility at Carlton. That's a real problem for them. They need to sort that out.
I definitely think if they might be contending for that 8th spot potentially.
I think they're in that conversation. But,
they're in that conversation.
But they're not going to do anything in finals if they play like that.
No. I think basically anyone who finishes 8th, that's just good for them. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be like whatever.
You're here. Bye.
You're here. Bye.
You're playing 5th place Gold Coast at People First Stadium. Have fun. But at least you get to go to the Coolangatta Airport. That's
right. Everyone's favourite airport in Australia. You just don't know it. They just don't know it yet, Jesse.
Well, if they've been, they probably know it.
That's true. That is true.
You're assuming that the Gold Coast is like Area 51 and you just can't go there. Have you been to the Gold Coast?
I have, but I was very young, Jesse. It was well before you were born.
Did they have planes when you went there?
They did, and so much so.
Did they have airports, or was it like jump out and hope for the best?
No, it was like a bus stop. You just got to just pull up next to a stick, and you just got out, and it was like, here you are, you're in Gold Coast now.
Dude, here's a smart rider.
Here's one. Yeah, just tag on the plane. I mean, security was very lax. It was fantastic. Here's one for the oldies though. The plane was one of those ones where you had, instead of having your own individual screen, before you even had the screens drop out of the ceiling, there was a red, green, and blue projector projecting onto the very front wall of the plane. And that was it. That's all you had.
Sucks.
Yeah, try and see that over the seats in front of you. It was very difficult.
You would have been fun. It would have been people like you that would have ruined my viewing experience of when was this, like Casablanca or whatever they had on the
great
plane
film
projector.
Great film, that one. Great film. I'm only a foot taller than you, Jesse. It's not that much. All right, let's go to the next game. That's how we know that game was great. We started talking about Casablanca. All right.
Anything but the game.
Here's a cracker. Let's move on to a good one. Round 10 at the SCG. 11-12, 78 to the Magpies. 10-8, 68 to the Crows. Kawana. 67,697. Well attended.
Good crowd.
Which is always nice. Yeah, it's a lovely crowd, especially for an away team. We know that Collingwood are going to bring a crowd regardless, but when there's an away team, you kind of expect it to hop around that 50. Man, nearly 70. Good on you, Adelaide. So what happens when you play good footy though, Jesse? Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, two sides playing very good footy. Much like the Gold Coast Hawthorn game, you can drop 4 points here, but it is okay. And Matthew Nixon Adelaide need not panic about this result. They'll be disappointed they probably didn't execute as well to position the ball forward as they have in previous weeks. That's probably the biggest question mark for them. But look, the Pies are an excellent side. They're in the box seat now as premiership contenders. They're going to be hard to beat. They also have a very good travel schedule for the rest of the season as well. So good luck if you have the Pies later in the season at the G. That's going to be tough.
I'll quickly interject. The Giants, I think you might have sent it to me. You probably did. No one else sends me footy stuff. But the Giants had like this little kind of slideshow of all the things that have happened since the last time they played at NG, right? Because they had the Easter show in between, haven't been there for a while. And one of the things was in that time, Collingwood had played 50% of their away games for the season already. They're never leaving Melbourne again.
Percentage.
Huh?
There's a lot of percentage. Biggest stat for me here, efficiency inside 50, Collingwood 53%, Adelaide 45%. In a close game, it makes all the difference. But look, both sides, I think, will be able to take key positives out of it. I think Kawana, it's about not throwing the toys out of the pram, like I said before. Collingwood, they choked a side that's potentially a top 4 team.
Yep.
That's a great result for them. And, clearly cements them right at the top echelon of teams this season.
One thing I liked about this game as well is the conditions were pretty shit. They were slippery as all get out. But they both handled it so well. And just like the Suns-Hawks game, this is another one that you're going to see potentially later on in September. You would expect both these teams to be making the finals for sure, or especially Collingwood. But it just goes to show the cream at the top of this competition at the moment is the fact that no matter where you put them, no matter what conditions they're in, they'll get the job done and they'll still look good doing it. It's not going to be like a slippery old mess. A little bit of a slip, bit of juggle the ball a little bit. Don't know what that was, and then away they go, and they just win games of footy. And it's really hard to hate Collingwood at the moment, even though it's the classic old Collingwood. But God, they're good.
Get out of my yard.
They're annoyingly good, aren't they? All right. Anything else to add to this one, Jesse? Before we move on to the next game,
I think we should move on.
All right, here we go. Yatapulti, 5-9-39. Absolutely spanked by the Geelong Cats, 17-13, 115. For those who are listening and not watching, the face Jesse just pulled when this score was read out was something else. It was one of oh dear, oh no, this is
like I obviously I know this game happened, but then I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's for what was essentially a fairly close scrap. Again, pretty bad conditions. But
and the first quarter was competitive. I mean, that was fun. This was just like the 2007 Grand Final reenactment, wasn't it? A competitive first quarter, and there's absolute spanking beyond that.
Well, it was akin to the Geelong Freo game earlier this year. One good quarter by one of the teams, and then the rest was just Geelong doing what they do. Be remiss to not talk about hamstring-ageddon. Easy to say, hamstring-ageddon. 4 of them in the first 2 quarters. Popping off bones, Dangerfield. Who else?
Horn Francis, Lucky
Jones. The other one.
Look, it's rough. It was apocalypse now at Adelaide Oval, and it's a worry when you get that level of injuries in one game. You start to wonder, are players really desperate for the bye?
Yeah. Well, it's a long season, Jesse. It's a long
It
season,
is.
as you know.
And it's getting longer every year.
Yeah, it starts too early. No, it's hard to say anything bad about the Cats at the moment. I mean, Cameron kicked 7, equaled his record for his time at the Cats. 9, I think, is his record for the Giants, but it's still pretty good. It's a pretty good return.
Oh yeah,
is 7.
Just 7.
Just a casual 7 goals, 2 more than the entire Yatapulti team kicked. Is there much to really say about this game though, Jesse? Because it was like, if you're a Port fan, you're starting to question a lot, I think.
Yeah, it's panic button time for Port, and they've been hovering over pressing it, I think, for the last few weeks. Now they've had some okay results. They were competitive in the showdown. This was awful, and I think it's clear now at this point the succession plan has been a monumental failure, as has just about every succession plan that's ever tried in the AFL. It's the same with this ongoing employment model for coaches. I don't get it. Like, why clubs keep doing things that have never worked because it's going to work this time. But that's not how trends work.
Well, having said all that, I can't wait for Yaltaport to just smash Freo next.
Oh yeah, nailed on.
Let's go to the next game, Jesse. Oh, speaking of the devil, at NG Stadium, the Giants 8-13-61 defeated by the Bombers 13-17. My God, 95. The crowd finally came in, Jesse. 8,092 people.
I'm calling that into question.
That number?
Yeah, because Michael Frederick's goal started third quarter off a dodgy hole in the ball from Callum Ward, which, by the way, arguably won the game for Fremantle at that moment. But that crowd, first of all, no one seemed to boo. I don't know if they don't know the rules in Western Sydney or what was going on, but just dead silent.
Yeah. I've actually started seeing Giants fans now online call for them to move the team to Canberra, or for the ones who are in Sydney still do something, because...
Well, you've got to at this point, don't you? It's been almost 15 years now.
Well, I've said it before, and I've said that I used to live in Sydney, and I can vouch for the fact that NG is a mother trucker to get to. It's horrible. You pay $30 for parking, and you still have to walk 10 minutes. There's one train line that goes in there, which is a whale away at the tail end of Homebush. Like, it's really not an attractive stadium to want to go and watch football in. But we digress. The actual football itself, Jesse. Obviously, it can now be said, we can now call it that the team, and that team being Wally Up, it's just better with Jackson in it. It's better with Jackson in the middle.
Is it better with Jackson in it, or is it better with Darcy without it?
Well, come say, come sa. It's kind of where it's going to be, right?
But
because once Darcy's healthy,
nah, he's done.
Well,
if this is a serious football club, Darcy's playing waffle for the rest of the season. I don't care how much he's being paid. I think you honestly look at, he's been 800, 850 a season. I think you offer any club that will take it to pay half, get half of that off your books, and just walk. I don't care if you're paying half the salary for him to go elsewhere, because it's pretty clear off this performance that Jackson is the number one guy, and he said as much in the 6PR interview after the game, which I think in this era of sanitized vanilla football in terms of comments, and everyone's playing their role, the boys, blah blah blah. It's about what someone says, but it's about what someone doesn't say. And I think Jackson didn't go with the vanilla comments. Oh, love playing with Sean. It's part of the group. Rah rah rah. The fact that he said, "No, I feel like I'm the number one ruckman. Like, I feel like I play best when I'm number one ruckman." That's all you need to hear.
Yep.
Especially with the rumors around him circulating. You go into that players' meeting today, as it would have been, and you say, "Right, Luke, you're the number one ruckman now.
Yep.
You're in charge. Yep. Sean, you either need to get fit in the waffle and sort of that, and then come back in, or you stay in the waffle and you go."
I feel like this whole trade talk and rumor about Jackson is kind of him dangling the carrot of, like,
I think so.
Make me the guy, or I'm bouncing.
And look, we know there's speculation. We don't know. There's significant speculation. There is some personal. I think actually it's confirmed. There is personal issues going on with Jackson at the moment outside of football, and that does make things difficult. But I agree, Liam. I think at least in part, a lot of this is down to the fact that he has been underutilized for the 2.5 seasons he's been here. And that Darcy in the start of 2023, pay that, because he was in excellent form back then.
Yep.
But he has just not kept up with the fitness standards expected of an AFL player. It is sadly that simple.
Yep.
A lot of that is health related. He's had a bad luck with injuries, and that's important to acknowledge. But you don't see players like Darcy. I actually think slimming down has been the death of him in many ways, because you can lose weight and lose fitness at the same time. That's a big misconception. You can slim down and lose kilograms but become less strong, less agile. If you lose in places like your legs where you need that leg strength to push off and accelerate, like Nankervis is a fairly solid player. So is Jared Witts. They can get around the ground fine, and they're probably now a larger physique than Darcy.
Yeah. Let's quickly talk about the other players of the game. Bolton was fantastic. Frederick was really good.
Can we pause and talk about those two specifically? I know we're going to pause play. Probably Freddie's best game since Melbourne in 2022. In that Sir Douglas Nicholls round at the G, where he was just phenomenal. He was on a mission and probably should have had 5 goals. Shea should have had 6. But he is.
We won't talk about the kicking in this game. We don't have time.
No,
we won.
But that is. But please, if I see one more person complain when Shea has a bad day in an off game, this is exactly what Shea Bolton's in the team to do. He's an icing player. He's not a cake player. He completes while you're up, but he's not going to build while you're up. He's not a foundational player. This is exactly what he's in the team to do. It's exactly why you're up spent 2 first-round picks to get him. This is an example of his ROI. He is Jeff Farmer 2.0 for this football club. I sincerely believe that he is going to end up better than Farmer, given his ability to go through the guts. He could be anything for this team.
All right, we could go on about Freo quickly on the Giants. Probably
disaster.
A few issues now.
This was horrible. This is as poor a performance as I've seen against Wyalup this season. And there was a derby in there. So you're talking last place, Wallish Marawa. They played Richmond in gather round. They were solid for most of the game and then just collapsed. But this was the worst 4-quarter performance I've seen against Wyalup at any point in the season. The Giants were terrible, and that scoreline is flattering because Wyalup just went home early. They wanted to get to the home bush train and get back to Mascot as fast as they could. They were like, we're done here. Nothing to see. But this was awful from the Giants, and it just makes me hold off a little bit when I talk about Wyalup because, Wyalup played well. They got the win. It was an important win, but off night for the Giants, off night for Kawana when they played them, off night against the Dogs, and then it was off night for the Dogs when Wyalup played them, and then West Coast, also Wallish Marawa, Richmond. They're your 5 wins. Yeah. Now, there could be an argument in that Wyalup are making these teams have their off nights. But statistically, at least in the case of the Dogs, and I'd argue in the case of Kawana, that's not reflective. So this might just be a case of the Giants just a bad side.
Well, it's either that or Freo just have to back it up and show us all what is good. Let's move on, Jesse. We must. Let's go to the next game. Oh, my goodness. Another one of those faces you can make,
The
Jesse.
Bombers fans are like, can we go back?
Bulldogs 18-19, 127. Oh, God. Bombers 5-6, 36. And to be honest with you, lucky this wasn't like 140 points. Yeah. That to say that that's flattering when you've lost by 91 points. Oh, God. It was just an absolute masterclass from the Dogs, though. Like, Bailey Dale, hello, nearly 50.
Top 15 disposal game of all time.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
Top of the Dogs.
Top dog.
1 off 50, which is always a milestone. Raise the bat. Thank you very much. I think we've forgotten to talk about someone who had a kilometre meters gained game.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Noble for the Suns.
For the Suns. Huge. But look, there's really actually not much to say about this game, Jesse. It was an absolute masterclass from the Dogs, and the Bombers would be scratching their head going, what are we doing?
Yeah, I think we can keep this pretty succinct. The Dogs just jumped them, and the Bombers are susceptible to this. They can have very poor starts, and they were absolutely smacked around. This is as poor of a performance from the Bombers as we've probably seen in a while, and they've not been good this year. Like we said a couple of weeks ago, they haven't had any really bad games yet this season, but they're kind of throttling out and they're still not winning a lot. This was just a bad game, and look what happened when they had an off night. They got absolutely obliterated, albeit by a very good side, but they were obliterated here, Lim. I think we should move on because honestly, the more we talk about it, we've already hammered in on the Bombers enough tonight. I think we should probably give them a bit of a reprieve and talk about the worst day of football tipping in modern history. There were some good games, though, on this
There
Sunday.
were some good games. And thank goodness for this one. MCG, the Tigers 11-8-74, defeated by the North Melbourne Kangaroos 12-6-78, single-handedly saving my tips this week. Look, I enjoy watching these games between the...
So do I.
The battle of the bottom, because both these teams were just so desperate to win this game. And much like the Richmond Eagles game last week, it was Richmond Eagles, wasn't it? Yes, it was. Which was just a battle. This one was a battle in itself, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Lawler was amazing, the young fella coming through. Nank is always there. He's great. For the Kangas, Cherry was amazing as always.
How was the ruck battle? That's your talking point here.
Yeah.
That was superb.
Yeah.
That is what you want to see from your bigs.
Normally, you get like one ruck who's kind of dominant the entire game. See Max Gawn.
Yes.
But this was just... I can't remember the last time I've actually watched a ruck battle this well thought out for an entire game of footy. And by the way, just quietly, for two teams down, two minnows at the bottom of the ladder, 54,000 at the G is...
Good on them.
Fantastic. It's wonderful. What are your thoughts on this one, Jesse?
A great game of footy. So good to see North get up and about. They've gotten a win in the draw from their last two. They're getting results now, and that's so important. And we talked about it. This was meant to be a better season for them. It probably didn't start the way they were hoping for, but they're grinding out results now. They ground out a draw that they probably should have won against the Lions, but hey, that's a draw against the reigning premiers who are still looking excellent this season. That's pretty good. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. And then a gritty win against the side right around you. So fantastic. Look, Richmond, it hurts, sure, but I love the fact that kids are getting the opportunity to play in these close games. They've had it last week. They got the win. They come into it off a loss. I actually think this probably helps them a lot. You get that experience and those intangibles in close games. They're going to have a lot of players growing up and hitting their primes at the same age. If they can get their intangibles at the same time, that's scary.
They definitely gave themselves every chance to win this in the last five or so minutes, but the North were just desperate enough to hold them back and keep them at bay. But
I think for as much criticism as some of North's older defenders have got over the years, and they have struggled at times, I think they really stood up here and made sure they were organised enough to get the job done. And
Comben's been a revelation the last couple of weeks. He's been really, really good, like just those intercept marks, especially in the clutch, like throughout the rest of the game. Whatever. It's just at the end of the game when it's like the game's on the line. He's been fantastic.
Triple C, clutch Charlie Colden.
That's it. Let's move on to the next game, Jesse. The upset of the round, easily, at the Gabba. The Lions 13-10-88. Yep, shrugs all round. Who knows what's going on?
What?
13-10-88 to the Lions. Melbourne 14-15-99. When you guys catch the confidence points in just the tips later on, you'll understand why this is such a big deal. Jesse and I both put our full 9 confidence points on this game.
We didn't even talk about the game.
We didn't even talk about it. We're just
forget about it.
No, don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. But, I mean, Nam kept themselves in for 3 quarters and then just stormed home. Like, it was such a bizarre, not bizarre. It was a great win for them.
It was huge for Nam.
I shouldn't say bizarre.
But in many ways it was bizarre because it wasn't a result that we saw coming. It was un-Brisbane-like in so many ways. And it was also un-Nam-like for what they've turned up with this season. Now, they've completely reversed their form trend in recent weeks, which is obviously fantastic for them. They're still not going to play finals, but they've won 4 of their last 5, so they're one of the form teams in the competition. But the Lions now, from their last 5, 2 wins, a draw against a not very good North Melbourne, and 2 losses.
Well, a draw against North Melbourne, then a loss to Melbourne. What's going on? What's going on for Brisbane at the moment?
I think it's a lot of that riding the lightning early in the season starting to catch up to them. And, they started poorly last season. I think they just go through peaks and troughs. I think that's just this team.
Okay.
As disappointing as this loss will be, and it is disappointing, they still hit the scoreboard. So they haven't just had a complete disaster game. They led it for the majority, and they're also not going to play this side in finals. It's
like your key one where there's an upset, isn't it, Jesse?
Well, I think
it's in finals. Who cares?
It's for the psyche. I think it's important. Sure. It's when a team gets a wood on you, it can be hard to go and reverse it. Look at some of North's records against sides in the last 10. I think Sydney, they've got an appalling record against, and they just can't beat them. It gets in your psyche.
There are definite psychological things to teams. Frio's in-game. Lions, I'd hate to be the team who's on the receiving end of when they decide to play good footy again. Let's move on to the very last game of the round, Jesse. They finally did it. They finally went and bloody did it, didn't they? 16-12, 108 to the West Coast Eagles, defeating St Kilda 12-8, 80 in what was an emotionally charged victory for the Eagles. One that I'm sure all their fans are going to be absolutely rapt that they got the victory here, finally got themselves on the ball for this year. Obviously, everything that went on with Adam Selwood during the week as well, or the day prior, I should say, mixed in with just obviously the Sir Doug Nicholls round as well. Like it was a big emotional event, and I think for the catharsis for the West Coast Eagles fans would have been just a huge weight off the shoulders, I would say.
It's been a long time coming, but this means this is so much more than 4 points for Waddish Marama. It's so much more for the Eagles. They desperately needed to win at some point, because when they lost to Richmond last week in a game that they had a hand on and, arguably should have won, when are they going to win a game this season? Grumblings got louder. Now, we both tipped Euroke in our confidence points, Liam, but I think I did make the comment that this is gettable for Waddish Marama. This is a gettable game if they want it and they're up for the fight. And they were. And it was a mix of the youth, and I think Harley Reid clearly, by far and away, had his best game of the season. Liam Baker is very much validating his importation. I think Graham also goes into that boat as well. This is such an important win for Waddish Marama, and it generally is such a good thing to see. And it's very easy when you crosstown rivals, your rivals are 0-9. It's very easy to just smirk and go ha ha, like hardy ha ha. But it's more than that, and they've been down for a long time now. This honestly still may end up being the worst of the last 3 years, even when they were beaten by 170 points by Sydney, even when they were dreadful all of last season. This may end up being the worst of the three in terms of win-loss. But they've gotten that first win on the board. And last year, when they got that win on the board, I think in Gather Round, they came back and won a derby the next week.
Yep.
So things can change. Straight away, things can change. I don't know if it's going to, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yep. 100%. And yeah, I think it's just a really nice thing to see. Like you said, obviously we're Freo boys, but we're not like that, Jesse.
No.
We're happy the Eagles got a win.
We're punch in the straight direction.
Yeah.
Not down too much.
No.
Usually you have to punch up with like little weak uppercuts. And then they just punch down and say, well, how many premierships do you have?
Yeah.
And we say, ow, that hurt my head.
The anvil.
Where have I heard
drop.
that before?
The anvil. Bonk.
This is more like the anchor.
That's
but
true.
but no, look, we'll stop jesting and then we'll jest about Euroke because, oh dear. Euroke giveth and Euroke taketh. They've now won one of their last 5. That was a 60-point win against Waylup, by the way. One in their last 5. So now with Waddish Marama winning, equal for the worst record in the competition over the last 5 games. In fact, they're the only 2 teams with 1 win in their last 5. Sorry, and GWS, so that's 3. But gee, that's a worry for Euroke. And I don't want them to get caught in this purgatory of, are we pushing for finals or are we sorting out our list for next year? I think they need to just make the call on the second one because this team's not going to hurt you in the finals. They're not going to make that impact in the finals. They don't have the depth right now, and that is okay. You get the games in, you get the style, you refine the style you want to play. You're going to win some games along the way. But this was, they can't be like, I know it's, Waddish Marama always going to win a game or 2 or 3, however many this year. That was always going to happen.
Sure.
But then, by the same token, if you're the team losing that, that's phenomenally disappointing for you. Even if the law of averages is eventually going to catch up in favour of Waddish Marama, if you're on the receiving end of that, you are unbelievably frustrated. And the meltdown from Euroke fans has been biblical, I think, in many many pockets of their fan base. But this was very bad, Liam, for them. But this is as bad. They were never even, I think, close to winning.
That is
really outside after quarter time.
They don't travel to the West very well, Do they? The
No,
Saints?
they don't. They never have.
No. Well, let's wrap this one up, Jesse, because we're going for a little bit now. So I would love for you to take the lovely people home.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. Make sure you leave us a review on your preferred podcasting platform, be that Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. A like, share, subscribe on YouTube. But the best type of review you can give us is word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your date to the Casablanca screening at the weird oldie day movie theatre coming near you. I'm sure you'll have a great time. I'm sure you'll have an even better time if you just stick your AirPods in and listen to this instead. Until next time, I'm Jesse. That's Liam. We'll see you soon on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.